Welcome to the Musicians Creating Prosperity podcast. Today, I have the pleasure of featuring Linor Oren, a singer, a teacher, and a blogger from the Netherlands who specializes on helping musicians step out of their shyness and own their place in the world through singing. In this episode, we're going to uncover the strategies in which she has been able to optimize her music business, step into a new place of financial freedom and time freedom, and also spread her mission around the world in a global way. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Musicians Creating Prosperity podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Fabiana and I'm excited to introduce you to Linor Oren, a singer, voice teacher, and a blogger from the Netherlands who specializes on helping musicians step out of their shyness and own their place in the world through singing. I'm excited to show you not only her business, what she's created, but also the strategies that have allowed her to change her model and reinvent herself, her business, and win back her time and create a completely new income stream. Welcome to our podcast, Linor.
Hi, Fabiana. Thank you for inviting me over.
Absolutely. Super happy to have you here. I would love for you to maybe share a little bit more about your background to get people to know you. What are you doing now? What got you to what you're doing now? Share more about that.
Yeah, I discovered my passion for singing a little later in life than other people. I was suffering from very severe case of stage fright, so bad that I couldn't have anybody even hear me sing. I would only sing in choirs. And I finally got the courage to get my own singing lessons when I was 21 years old. And when I realized how good that experience was, I had no choice but to overcome all of my anxiety. That took a very long time, but I did it. I think it took about a decade of true suffering, no guidance, no tools. I just did what I had to do, and I found a way to actually enjoy my performances. And I know in my own experience how meaningful it is to discover your own voice, how it affects your personality, and how it just changes your life completely. And that experience was so priceless to me, as well as being able to create that connection with the audience, which a lot of people would love to be able to do, but then their shyness and their anxiety holds them back. It just became my mission to help people achieve that priceless experience of exploring yourself, of basically, like you said, own your place in the world, like know that you have a right to sing, which is not granted, apparently. Some people think that it's not really their place to sing fully and feel free because the neighbors might hear them. That's my calling, to help people discover their voice and be okay with their voice and give it to the world.
Love that. I love that. Tell us more about what was going on in your business in this, last 6 months or so that we've kind of helped transition you into the way you were working into a new model that gave you, more options. Tell us more about, what you had built up until that point, which was quite remarkable, really. Talk to us more about the before. What was your business like up until that point?
I was building myself as a singer, and I was struggling a lot achieving or developing a career. I had a very small career, and I suffered a lot, from the whole audition process. So I was really happy when I realized that when I teach, I I don't only get rewarded on the spot, like I see results on the spot, but I really love just handling the voice. It's a big fascination of mine. So it didn't even feel like a second plan to just switch to teaching. And I just decided to go and start teaching. I was giving one-on-one lessons, and that's all I wanted to do in the beginning. I was just giving more and more lessons. And after 18 years of doing that, I realized, okay, that's a lot. Yeah, so I'm just giving lessons and giving lessons, and it just everything that I'm doing. I started my YouTube channel with reaction videos that became popular. So I started getting more lessons, like more students, and my blog got me students. Like everything was about getting more students, until at some point it just felt heavy, and I was starting to be on the verge of burning out, which for me was very difficult psychologically, because that was my passion. Like in being burned out from something that I'm supposed to love so much, it was just very difficult for me to to handle. But that was what I was doing. I was blogging. I was conducting a YouTube channel with voice tips, with reaction videos. I was just conducting my own studios here in the Netherlands. I have two choirs as well that sing musical theater, so that's a lot of fun. Yeah, and then it was time for a change.
I appreciate you sharing that. And I mean, even though you were on the path of burnout, you were really in many ways doing such great work that was, you know, creating success for you. But the problem was the model that you were sending everyone to
Yeah.
was flawed, right? Because I mean, it's remarkable that you were, very visible online. You had taken the steps to learn all these mechanisms for a client attraction, right? Build a significant online following through your mailing list, which is really remarkable just to have learned all those things, which are not probably what you learned, right, as a traditional singer.
Not at all.
So I want to highlight, how much effort and how much you achieved from an effort standpoint in terms of growing your business. It's not easy to do all the things that you did, to have this YouTube channel, to create a blog, to have a following. You also had a podcast. You have a podcast, right?
Yeah. I had a podcast called the Sing Well Karaoke Show. It took a lot of my resources to do it. And at some points, I took a break, and I'm planning on getting back to it.
The reason why I introduced the question with, like, it was remarkable because you were working so hard. You were doing all the right things in many ways
Mm.
as it relates to trying to succeed and growing your business, and there was no lack of effort or or intention in your part. And the incredible thing is that all of these initiatives, even though they are very powerful and can draw people to you, if the model that you're sending them to is a model that is based on you trading your time, a one-on-one model, then it's actually going to be more damaging than beneficial at the end, because it can create a place of burnout like you described.
And there's only so much of that you can do.
It reminds me of people going to the gym, right? People go to the gym and they're like, I'm going to get healthy, I'm going to work out, I'm going to start doing all the moves. And then they have the wrong model, the wrong framing, the wrong posture. And what do they end up? They end up injured. They end up in pain. They end up in a worse place than when they started, even though they had all the intentions of working out and wanting to get healthy, not having the right structure. In the gym example, it's a physical structure, right? It's like a posture structure. But in this example that we're talking about is the business structure. Not having the right structure of your model can actually end up creating a place of burnout and overwhelm. And I certainly relate to that myself, because I was doing the same thing in my process too, running a business remotely, teaching at university, like, and we think we're doing all the right things because that's what we've been programmed to understand. This is how musicians have to work. And hey, work hard. But I mean, I wanted to kind of share your example of, like, you were doing all the right things, except you were sending them to the wrong place, right?
Yeah. Well, I still do have online courses, and the hope was that, that's how we can expand. Yeah. That's how we can grow the business, by selling the online courses. And then some people will also come and take private lessons. But what I was not taking into account is that people are not wired to work on their own, really. The course was not selling so well. And when it was, people were not actually going through the course because that's not how we wired to work. So we do need some kind of a personal connection, and especially in the beginning, especially for singing, you need some kind of personal feedback. Otherwise, you have no idea what you're doing. And if you're doing it right or wrong, you might be singing great, but you will not know that you're singing great. So that will create frustration. Like, I think it's okay, but no, right? Because I'm just starting out, so probably it's not good. But I have no idea how to fix it. So it's
Yeah.
a very lonely place.
I'm glad you reminded us of that, because that's true. You also had launched online courses. You were like, "Oh, okay, there's an online way, let's do it." And you created your courses and you were selling online courses, and the structure that you had initially designed them, as you mentioned, was a structure that was primarily self-paced and also in a low price point, right? It was more of a lower, like the traditional, few $100s price point course, right? Something
Yeah.
like that.
Hmm.
that's also something that we see a lot is trying to build an online business, quote unquote, but doing it again with the wrong frame, the wrong structure. So I think this is very helpful for our audience to hear, because chances are you're doing something like that right now. Like if you're listening to this podcast, you are probably working really hard to get visible, to get marketing going on. I hear so many musicians who say, like, I just need more marketing. I need more people to see me. It's like, for
Yeah.
what? Where are you sending them to? Right. Or I'm building my online courses and I'm just putting all these videos together so that I can sell them. It's like, no. Linor, I think you're an incredible example of literally a musician who was doing all the things, all of them, right? Building a
Yeah.
platform on YouTube, having a podcast, having a blog. You were successful in the sense of getting the people to engage in, but then you just didn't have the right model to send them to, and so that's where it led you to a place of burnout. So let's talk about, I guess, what was it like for you to get to that point of feeling that, okay, this needs to shift? Like, what were some of the realizations that you felt that drew you to realize that just doing more of the same wasn't going to fix the situation, that you needed to change?
I remember like a moment. It was a moment in one of the lessons that I found myself waiting for the lesson to be over. And that was a very big cognitive dissonance because of what I said before. Like, I'm not supposed to be looking at the clock right now. The time is supposed to fly by. It's supposed to be my, my place. And I was always so grateful that I could work with my passion and work in music and with the voice specifically. It's just such a big love of mine. So I was feeling like I'm losing it, and that was really scary for me. Yeah. And then I realized that was not actually a one time thing. It just started to happen. I was starting to look at the clock and I was like, this is wrong. I can't, it cannot continue that way. That was the main thing for me. It was just an alarm clock.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Let's talk about what shifted then, because obviously we want to help people feel where did we go from there? Thank goodness the stars aligned. And even though you live in the Netherlands and I'm in Florida, in the United States, I have a whole ocean between us. Thankfully, there's the internet,
Yeah.
and through the internet, we got connected through one of my other singer clients who had come in to work with us and created an incredible, online business herself. And how did you end up in my world?
Yeah, so that was really nice. Lisa is a colleague of mine, also a voice teacher and an incredible voice teacher and a singer. We connected a few months back, maybe even a whole year back. She reached out to me because she found my online courses and she was thinking about doing something like that. And she was, just bold. She was like, "Hey, can we have coffee online, right? And get to know each other." And we became friends pretty quickly. I had her on my podcast, and then we were just in touch. And she told me about what she was doing with you, and that being like the answer to all her dreams. And it was a nice teaser. I was like, okay, so this might be like the answer to all my dreams. Let me know if you're interested in hearing about it. And I was like, hearing about the answer to all your dreams. Yeah, I'm interested. So we called about it. She told me about it. I watched your master classes together with my husband, Eric, who's a full partner in the business and is really doing a lot for that. Some people might argue more than me. And we were just basically going through the materials, and the thoughts were starting to shift. Like, is that a real thing? It was very strange at the beginning, that concept of having that online business is basically doing things so differently. Yeah. In a way, working less, basically being able to scale. So, yeah, for me, it was very, very foreign in the beginning, very scary. Eric liked it, I think, quite immediately. But I needed to get on board. But we were watching the classes, then we had some talks with you. And we were, of course, watching all the testimonies of people who have done it. So, even though I was doubting a lot, I realized there's not much reason to doubt because it's obviously possible. So yeah, I decided to go for it, even though I was really scared. But it was
Yeah.
just a refreshing new idea.
I
Yeah.
remember you were concerned, especially Eric. One of the questions that you both had was, this model sounds like it's really effective for your clients, for the musicians that are sharing their testimonies. They're talking about the results, how they were able to shift their businesses and find a way of winning back their time and creating a quantum leap in their income. But is it actually also beneficial for your student for their students? Like, how do we know that this can actually help the students as well? And I thought that was such a beautiful question and
Yeah.
concern that you both had, because it spoke volumes about your integrity, right? Your willingness to not just do this for your own convenience, but actually make sure that you're doing right by your students, and you're actually making them progress in a better way that would more than justify the new pricing structure that we would be helping you build from a low ticket model to a premium price point that would actually be worth it, right? So you want to talk a little bit
Yep.
about that, because I know a lot of our audience, they have that concern. Is like, is this actually beneficial for students?
That was indeed one of my biggest hurdles and my biggest concerns is that if I have to sell that, so to speak, to my students, then I need to know that it's a good product. And I was not wrapping my head around how that what that would look like. How am I how am I able to deliver the same service, the same personal attention, and then the same eventually the same results to my students when it's group lessons. And yeah, it was just so different. Yeah, the group lessons, and then so much more expensive in their, from their point of view. And how do I justify that? I just remember seeing one of your clients talking about that as well, and he said, like, eventually what made the shift for me was that I started to believe that this product was going to deliver. And that, for me, that was the most difficult point, to get to the place where I believe in the program. And I think it actually it started happening during the program when I found my own way. Okay, this is how I can use this model to deliver. Immediately I thought, like, okay, this sounds really promising. I can start convincing myself and other people with that, because I'm convinced now. But after I started doing that, that exceeded my expectations. So I'm like I'm a bit overwhelmed by how much more effective this model is for someone's progress. And if you told me that a few months ago, I would be very skeptical of it.
So let's talk more about the transformation of your model. So let's maybe compare. What was your business like in terms of the offer structure, and what were you offering before you started working with me and my team, and what did you turn it into, just so that people could wrap their heads around it?
What I was doing is I was just offering my online courses and private lessons. And the private lessons, what I recommended to people was to actually not take weekly lessons. I think I'm maybe the only voice teacher that was recommending that. And the reason was because I wanted people to make progress, and I knew that like only 1 week is not enough to really ingrain new techniques in your body. I wanted people to have time to do that, and I developed a method for them to ingrain the technique into the system, right?
Mhm.
So in I was a little bit naive about that, because of course that doesn't happen. You send someone home for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and they're not going to practice the way they want to. Nobody practices the way they want to. It's a bit funny that I was like living in that utopia world, so to speak. But that's what I was offering. So people were taking lessons every few weeks. Yeah, and then I had my choirs. That was basically my work.
But you had a lot of one-on-one lessons, like you were teaching a lot of one-on-one.
Yeah, I was teaching. Yeah, I was so I was doing the choirs. I was doing my online business, which is a lot of work, and I was also teaching about 15 hours a week, which I know like some people work 40 hours a week. I don't know how I would be able to do that, but for me that felt like a lot,
Well, you were
because I
doing
was
other
really
things too.
giving my all in those hours.
Of course, of course. I'm sure it was more than 40 hours in total if you add up everything you were with the online business, with the teaching, right? So then let's talk about I guess the transformation, what did you end up switching into? Yeah, and what does the model look like now?
So now I'm focusing on training programs. Yeah, so I have a 6-month program. It's called From Whisper to Roar, which
Oh,
represents most of my students can relate to that a lot. So was I. I was also a case from Whisper to Roar. And it is a combination of group lessons and private coaching. Private coaching is asynchronous. People send me little clips of their singing, and then I send them to all of my online courses, which is a nice thing that I've done that in advance.
wow. Mhm.
But if not, then I would, I know that your program is like built in teaching you how to create that content so
Right.
that that it lives beyond the lesson, which
Yes.
is really, really helpful. And the combination of all of those things is it basically makes the progress exponential. Yeah, because you have everything in place. You have all of the aspects that you need to learn with the group. There is also something that I started calling it second dimension learning. Yeah. So when you learn how to sing on your own, you're just exploring things on your own body, and that's really important. That's really good. But when you look at someone else working on their voice, that's when you start understanding, like, oh, I recognize that. Oh, I was working on that, or oh, this is really interesting. Let's learn, how they work through that. And it's really, really helpful, and you don't get that with private lessons. Yeah, that's basically what I'm doing right now. I'm working with a combination of all the different aspects, all different methodologies of learning. It's very digestible. It's like, you have an online lesson, or sorry, you have a private lesson for a whole hour. You will get like 50 different things that you have to work on, and then you go home and you're supposed to practice all of those things. But the way I work in general, I started working like that a few years ago. We choose one thing until you get that, and then you move to the other thing. So if you are in constant touch with the teacher, which is what you do in this program, then we're really able to keep you on track. So you send me like a little video, I give you a little feedback, and then 2 days later you can send me another video, right? And then so it's in small bites. It's a lot easier to work with that. So it's
And so
very satisfying to all parties.
in terms of the actual hourly shift, you were teaching around 15 hours a week. Now, the actual face-to-face teaching is more like 2 sessions a week. Is that right? You have
Yeah.
two
So
different
3 hours
groups.
per week.
So you went from teaching 15 hours to 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And now let's talk about like the pricing structure changes that you've made too, which were significant.
Mm-hmm.
Let's discuss that because share with us like how were you able to, I guess, shift the pricing structure, and what were some of the realizations that you came up with as you followed the Musicians Profit Umbrella process to restructure your pricing?
Before I was charging 75 euros per lesson. Yeah, and as I said, they were not coming every week, most of them. What I shifted into was paying, right now they're paying 40, sorry, I am not so good with numbers. I'm a musician. 3,400 euros for 6 months is the price right now. So that's, if you're just calculating per lesson, some people could say that's a very big difference. However, what you get from that and the process that you make compared to the scattered lessons is, it's not even the same universe. So it's
Right.
like a completely different product the way I see it.
And again, the idea here is that it's not a per lesson psychology anymore. It's a price point that helps people understand what will the transformation be, what are they working towards throughout these 6 months, and then focusing on the outcome that they're going to get, and investing in that result rather than your time necessarily, right?
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And it's really possible and much easier to focus on a goal when you have an actual program. So it's
Right.
like, yeah, you want to do this, let's gear towards that. Yeah. And I have all the means, including coaching you through your practice, which by the way was the biggest gap that I found, and the biggest frustration that I found in private lessons, that I think was also contributing to my starting to be burned out,
Right.
is that I couldn't help people once they went home, and now I
Yeah.
can.
That's incredible. And I know within making this change, one of the questions that usually musicians wonder is like, how will I get students to come and pay at this type of price point and invest in a premium price point? And in your case, you were able to do this and within 3 months generated 24,000 euros in new income by making these changes. What was your takeaway from being able to make that shift and quickly, create this type of level of wealth?
With regards to how am I going to get people to agree to this price point, when you explain the value of the program and you explain what's possible through the program, the price doesn't really sound so far fetched. So, of course, there will always be people who like physically can't afford it. And then we can think about what are the options for them. But for the most part, if someone is ready to make a change, and they want to work on their voice and they're passionate about it, that's the kind of people I want to work with. Yeah. So like I was a little done working with the scattered lessons and just karaoke lessons basically. I want to work with people who have the passion and they need to step into their voice, and they need that. Yeah. That's the people that get the most out of me, and I relate to that. I relate to their story, they relate to my story. So those kind of people, they just fit the program. Sometimes it just fits, and if it fits, then it fits. Then the price is not such a big deal.
I think it's very important that you share that because I think one of the biggest challenges, and I certainly can relate to when I was teaching piano one on one lessons for 20 years, is that we feel disempowered around who we get to attract, right?
Yeah.
Because our price point is just in a way not attracting the people who really want this. And not because they can afford it necessarily, but because it matters to them, right? And now you get to attract students who it's not necessarily that they are in a specific income bracket that, oh, money is just flowing for them. No, it's about calling in the students who really care about your values, care about your particular brand. They care about the message that you've built around your business. That is the reason that they come to you because you are positioning yourself with more conviction, more clarity, and calling in people who actually are going to come in and get amazing results because they're all in into this process. They believe in it, they want it, they're obviously making an investment, finding a way to make the investment, which many people don't have a way, but they find it anyway because they care about what it is that they can get from that result. So let's talk a little bit about that process because it took a bit of a reinvention from your own kind of brand and clarity of conviction and messaging strategy, right? To call out your clients with such conviction. Can you share more about what that transformation looked like in terms of rebranding yourself and being able to position yourself as a premium opportunity for people?
It just seems like now that I've done it, I almost don't remember doing it because it's like I don't remember how I was before even. I was already telling my personal story, which was sort of like attracting people to me for the reasons, what I wanted to give people. So that was like partially happening. But within the program, I was more intentional about exactly like what level of passion we're aiming for,
Mm.
and really narrowing into that niche of people who need confidence, people who need to get over their insecurities, and just that simple thing of practicing in your own house. Yeah. Some people are just so afraid that they can't even do that. I can't even sing in front of their spouse, right? I was getting a lot more narrowed down and focused on that message, like this is what I do, this is what happened to me, right? It was just really cleaning up also all the other kind of messages because I had a lot of stories shared, and I was sort of like trying to aim in different directions.
That
Yeah.
dilutes the effectiveness of your brand when you are not really clear on how do you want to position yourself and what is the actual problem you want to help solve, even if it applies to different types of clients, right? It's not about focusing only on one type of client, but about really narrowing down what is the thing you want to be known for. How do you position that as your superpower?
Yeah.
And I remember when we started working together, you had, as you said, you were sharing your story, but it was not clear how that related to your offer and how you wanted to connect it all together. Umbrella, right? Which is, what I love helping musicians do is just figure out how to better package who they are, what they do, and their values and their superpowers so that it's simple and easy for people to understand. So I think that not only
Yeah.
helped your audience react in a better way, but even helped you. Like, did you feel like it helped you just feel more clear and confident in what you're offering and the value of what you provide?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And it also helped me shift into that mindset of this is the way I'm working now. This is my goal. Yeah, this is my mission. This is my target audience. That helped eventually communicate the program to other people. And then while you were talking, I also remember that we put out all kinds of content about the benefits of group work, and just starting to change people's minds, hopefully, about that traditional model of one-on-one, and what gaps there are and what disadvantages there are in that, and then how combining all these other things, how that can fill in those gaps. So we were doing a lot of that kind of messaging as well, and that, yeah, that helped me change my own mindset as well.
I love that. I love that. One of the things that I feel incredibly grateful for is having seen you in one of our recent online retreats have this epiphany. We had initially, when we started working together, you made a 90-day plan and you set out certain things in an intention of like being able to achieve them. After 90 days, as we were in our next retreat, you looked at all of those goals and you realized they had actually come true. Tell us about that. Like, what did that feel like when you were able to see that?
So, yeah, I remember that very clearly as well. I didn't even remember putting those goals down. It was kind of speculating that's what it was meant for, I think. Yeah. So you basically just give yourself a goal and then start going. Yeah. And so we were so busy working the program for those 3 months. And then after the three months, we were looking at the goals. And then it was just, oh, okay. So you work the process and then you get what you want. It's that simple. It was a shocking moment. It was a very emotional moment. And I was basically a little bit speechless, I have to say. I was like, okay. Because if I looked at it 3 months before, it would feel like, yeah, it's like a little dream, right? It's a dream. We might, not achieve that, probably not, but it's nice to aspire. So realizing that we achieved that, that was powerful.
I love that. So now that you have this new business model, tell us about what your life looks like, Linor. Like you've shared, some just realizations of what you're able to do now with your new schedule, with your new time. What does your life look like now that you've been able to reinvent your music business?
So now I have the luxury problem of having too many options. Because I have a lot of time on my hands. So, of course, if you're a freelancer, you never run out of things to do, right? So the to-do list is there. It's very long. So if I wanted to, I could still work my ass off, yeah. But I could also not. So I have everything set in place. I have people coming to me through the website. I have calls with them, you know, and some enrolling to the program, some enrolling to yeah, we haven't discussed that yet, but I also have another kind of program that is less intense and not as involving of my attention. So yeah, these things are happening. They're rolling. I don't have to do much with that. I have my two groups 3 hours a week. That's it. Yeah, I have my two choirs. I kept my choirs because I love them, and that's fun. And otherwise, I could sip margaritas all day long, but I don't because I have a business. I have a lot of work to do, but I have a choice now. So I can decide, okay, I'm taking an hour in the morning to do my body work and meditation. I can decide in the middle of the day that I am taking a nap. I can call a friend in the middle of the day. I can do whatever I want.
Wow.
That's simple.
How has that impacted your personal life? I know you're a mom and a wife. How has that impacted every other area, would you say?
Well, with my family, I have two kids, and you know how kids are really good at giving you guilt feels whenever you go to work. Yeah. So to me, that was really like especially difficult on Saturdays. I would have really long work days on Saturdays because most people take lessons on a Saturday. So I would go have my choir, and then I would give lessons, and I would basically be gone from home during the weekend. And I personally felt bad about it, regardless of their guilt feeling, but that didn't help. And now I go to my choir, which is 2 hours. I come back to my kids. It's an incredible feeling. I'm just like, I'm home. Weekends are for my family. Period. It means a lot to me. It always meant a lot to me to be with my kids, and I've done my best with regards to that. But it's much upgraded now, especially with that Saturday. Like there are more examples, but this one is like the most impactful for me. I feel like I can be a better friend as well. Like before, I was really struggling to find time to call somebody because I'm just working all the time. And now I can just do it. It's just really nice. Feels like I'm a better person even. Like, yeah, it's just great.
And of course, all of that is going to show up in your teaching. Of course, that's going to impact your students. That's going to feel, I mean, you can pour so much more into your students and your kids and your husband and yourself when you are not burned out. So I would like for you to maybe share some final words of advice or inspiration to our listeners in this podcast who may be exactly where you were just a few months ago, right? And they may be wondering, is this even possible? Is this real? Like, are people actually able to succeed reinventing themselves? Any words of advice that you would have to say, for anyone who's, the Lenore of just a few months ago?
For me, a few months ago, it would be the most important to hear about the effectiveness of the program. It's unbelievable how much more upgraded the experience is for me as a teacher. And if it's important to you as a teacher to give people enough attention to be able to coach them through, the ups and downs, like life gets in the way, being busy, being sick, making sure they practice the right things so that they don't practice the wrong thing for a whole week. You know how frustrating that is, right? So if for no other reason than for this reason, you should go for this program because it's really enabling so many options and opportunities to pay attention to your students. And it's really fulfilling as a teacher. So for me, that would be the most important thing that would help me go into this. And if you're scared of the prices, then it's you and everybody else, and you'll be helped. You will be helped, and you'll wrap your head around it, and you will become better at understanding the value of your program, and you'll be better at offering it. When eventually you see people joining, then you realize, okay, it's possible. I can tell you from where I am, it's possible. I did not think it was possible, even though everybody else said it was possible. There's something like our fear of, I guess, of failure, thinking that we're not worth enough and that our work is not worth that much. That's something that most people struggle with, and that might not just change on a switch right now. But if you do it, it will happen, and then you'll see.
Thank you, Lenore. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing those words. And it's been such a pleasure supporting you, helping you reinvent your business. And I can only imagine the impact of your new work that it will have on so many singers around the world. Can you share any final words of where can people follow you? Of course, we're going to put your website in our show notes and everywhere else so people can look you up and Singwell brand and everything. But any final words of, what you would like people to know about what you're doing and how they can follow you?
Yeah, I think the best way to follow me is on my website, singwell.eu. And that's where I have everything. I have my blog there, I have my messaging and all of that. And you can see a little bit about the program as well. And what I would just want to say is, when you get coaching, things get better. So trust Fabiana, she knows what she's doing. Even with me, that I had all these concerns and doubts, here I am.
Thank you, Lenore. Thank you so much for being here, for sharing your amazing story. I cannot wait to continue supporting you and seeing all the amazing things you're going to do in this next stage of your business and your life. Thank you for being in our podcast today. And we look forward to following you.
Thank you for everything that you have done for me.
My pleasure.